to Berlin as so many of my countrymen have come before. Although tonight I speak to you not as a candidate for president, but as a citizen. A proud citizen of the United States and a fellow citizen of the world.
The junior senator from Illinois, Senator Barack Obama in Berlin, Germany. Welcome back, everyone. Still with us, Luke Bernstein, Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Republican Party, and Democratic media consultant J.J. Balaban. And in our Washington, D.C. studios, Aaron Billings, Associate Editor of Roll Call newspaper. Welcome back, everybody. Luke, let me start off with you. We obviously saw Senator Obama over in Europe. He was in the Middle East. He was in Paris yesterday and so forth. Coming back to the United States on a pretty good high note in terms of visuals, in terms of the overall message. You heard him say that he is a citizen, or we all are all citizens of the world. Senator McCain last week was here in Pennsylvania talking about gas prices and so forth. Very different visuals, very different messaging. Do you believe that Senator McCain, your candidate, is and was doing the right thing in terms of staying here in this country and talking about bread and butter issues, so to speak?
Absolutely. I think that's the most important thing on voters' mind right now is what can be done about the economy, what can be done about gas prices, and I think that Senator McCain staying here was an important thing for him to do to try and reconnect with voters here. I think Barack Obama giving that speech yesterday in Berlin was very presumptuous of himself, and I thought to myself as watching the speech, humility can tell a lot more about an individual than going to Berlin and grandstanding, and one of the things that I thought was really unfortunate is he has not earned the right to be America's spokesman, and I think by him going to Berlin, going to the Victory Tower, he tried to take on that right to be America's spokesman. He hasn't earned that. He hasn't earned that right. That's the President of the United States' job, and he might be a candidate for that office, but he is not the president. So I thought that was very presumptuous of him to give that speech, and I think Senator McCain's right by staying here, by coming to places like Pennsylvania and Ohio and talking about the things that are on people's minds right now: gas prices, energy, the housing crisis, and other issues that are really going to drive this election.
Aaron Billings, what are some of Senator Obama's colleagues in Washington saying about this trip?
I think they think it was essential. At least his Democratic colleagues did. I mean, you know, as you know, Senator Obama has been on the defensive when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to the war in Iraq, when it comes to trying to show that he has the chops on national security and global security. Obviously, that's McCain's strength. And he, as you know, had not been to Iraq, hadn't been to the Middle East, hadn't, you know, done a lot of this kind of, you know, European, et cetera, outreach that that McCain has done throughout the 30 years he spent in the Senate. So Obama was at a disadvantage. I think a lot of people within the party thought he's got to do it, and he's got to do it now because he has to show to the American people that he actually has the wherewithal and the ability to be the commander-in-chief.
And JJ, while Senator Obama was over in Europe last week, Senator McCain obviously talking about gas prices and so forth, as I mentioned, he was also talking about how Senator Obama was wrong on the surge last year, was wrong on some of the unconditional, at least his proposal, unconditional quote-unquote surrender out of Iraq. Senator McCain was also trying to stress the point that I was right on the surge, even when it was not particularly popular to be right this time last year. In fact, Senator McCain also had some comments about Senator Obama. Let's take a listen.
He is in favor of an unconditional withdrawal. An unconditional withdrawal, my friends, without paying attention to the facts on the ground, could lead to our failure, a resurgence in our enemies, and we would have to go back. My friends, when I'm President of the United States, we will come home. We will come home with victory and honor, but we'll never have to go back because we will have won this conflict, and we are winning, and we are succeeding.
JJ, your response to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when people look back on last week and what Senator Obama did, I think they're going to see it as actually one of the turning points of the campaign. I can't help but find it amusing that John McCain first said Barack Obama should go to Iraq, and then when he actually did go to Iraq, criticized him for going to Iraq. But if you look at what happened over the past week, there were three significant things. One, the U.S. basically reversed its policy and sent a negotiator over to Europe to negotiate with Iranian nuclear negotiators, basically to sit down with part of the Iranian government. That's something that Senator Obama has called for, and he was been sharply criticized by Republicans. Well, now it turns out the Bush administration is doing that. Second, he looked presidential. When you see him in front of those crowds, Barack Obama has a bar that he needs to cross because he's relatively new on the national scene. Can you imagine him as president feel comfortable with him as president, and he did that through some of these speeches.
Let me ask you, do you think that matters in the so-called T, which is the area of Pennsylvania where you have Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, or I'm juxtaposing. You have Pittsburgh and you have Philadelphia, but you also have Scranton, Harrisburg, Erie. Do you think those type of visuals matter to the individuals in that part of the state?
I think they do to this extent. There needs to be a comfortability, especially given the world situation and the threat from terrorism. You need to feel like our commander-in-chief is someone who can play on the world stage and who's someone who can keep people safer. And I think this trip helped with that. Obviously, you can say, is it a mixed message standing in front of a large crowd of 200,000 Germans when you're in Scranton? I'd say actually yes, because again, it looks presidential, and there is that bar, there is some uncomfortability with him throughout the state of Pennsylvania, and this helps him cross that. In terms of the surge, I think it was very interesting that the Prime Minister of Iraq came very close to endorsing...
Prime Minister Maliki.
Prime Minister Maliki basically came very close to endorsing Barack Obama's policy on Iraq, which very much undercuts the argument that he's a cut and run if this is what the government of Iraq is saying they want.
Luke, let me go back to the original question that I asked JJ and ask you the same question. In the middle part of the state, or any part of the state, frankly, those visuals, do they really matter? In other words, if I'm looking at Senator Obama in front of 200,000 Berliners, it's a great visual, but if I'm living paycheck to paycheck, if I'm worried about my health care, if I live in Lackawanna County and you know, I'm a son of a coal worker, do those visuals help me make ends meet?
I don't think visuals of Barack Obama giving a beautiful speech in Berlin, you know, do anything for the people back home, especially here in Pennsylvania. People want to know, how are you going to help bring more jobs to Pennsylvania? People want to know, how are you going to lower gas prices? People want to know, how are you going to help me in the housing crisis? And Barack Obama's speech failed to address any of those issues. And I think in terms of security, he failed to say how he was going to lay out any plans to keep our country safe or to keep the world safe, but just spoke in really hypotheticals, and he does a very good job of pointing out the problems, but he comes up very short in coming up with solutions. And I think when you look at what Barack Obama's speech versus where John McCain was here in the state, it was much better to have John McCain here. I think that when you try and compare that experience that Obama and McCain has, it's galactic. It's like trying to compare Michael Jordan against a junior high school basketball player, with McCain having the experience of a Michael Jordan and the junior high school basketball player having the experience of Obama. It is just so, there's no parallel that you can even come close to. So I think he had to try and appear presidential, but I think he failed in that attempt.
Aaron Billings, obviously you saw all the visuals last week, as we all did. You have to admit, I mean, those visuals were actually pretty good on Senator Obama's part, just in terms of the majesty of it all, looking presidential, as J.J. Balaban had said. You know, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you really believe that in the battleground states of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, and Michigan, and so forth, very quickly, do you believe that actually is going to help him win this election?
It's not going to hurt him. I mean, it's certainly not going to hurt him. I mean, when he's standing in front of a crowd of 200,000 people, you know, Berliners or Germans are saying they'd support him 78 to 22%. Is that going to change the election? Probably not, but I don't think it does any damage. And like I said earlier, you know, as he's trying to shore up his foreign policy credentials, this does nothing but bolster that effort. And frankly, it's still on the minds of voters, even though the economy is number one, and that's probably going to dictate the, you know, the outcome of this election largely. The Iraq war and foreign policy is still going to be a part of what voters consider when they make their choice in November.
All right, that's unfortunately has to be the last word on this segment, and also obviously for this part of the show. Aaron Billings, the associate editor of Roll Call newspaper, thank you very much for joining us from Washington, D.C. J.J. Balaban, who is the, or actually I was going to call you the former Democratic communications director for the DNC, which is technically correct, but you're still your Democratic strategist. So thanks for joining us, as always. And Luke Bernstein, the executive director of the Pennsylvania Republican Party. Thanks for all of you being here. We very much appreciate you being on the show with us. And of course, the segment that I know you've been waiting for, find out the latest funnies going on in and around Capitol Hill in our Heard on the Hill segment in just 3 minutes. Stay with us. We'll be right back.